Hello everyone, my name is Sebastien, and as you can hear, I come from France. I'm the chief data scientist at BNP Paribas Cardif. But first, let me tell you a few words about the type of messages I want to share with you today. So I'm going to talk about model risk governance, but I'm not going to spend time on the content and details of what a model risk governance should be. What I want to share with you is why, as data science leaders, you should start working on such model risk governance as soon as possible in your transformation roadmap. And I want to share the reasons why I think you should take on the challenge as data science leaders, and you should actually take lead to work on the content of such governance and how you can turn it into opportunities. And I hope that by the end of this session, I will have convinced you that the return on investment is significant. I'll give you a bit of context first about the definition of model that I will use. So in the context of BNP Paribas, our risk department retained this definition, which is that it's any quantitative method, system, or approach that produces estimates of uncertain values and used to make decisions or to make public communications. So, of course, machine learning models and AI models fit in that definition, but also other types of models used in the bank, so financial, theoretical based models or economical models. So a few words also about my company. So BNP Paribas, it's a French bank. It's a leading bank in the Eurozone. It has also a footprint worldwide, so it's about 200,000 employees in 70 countries. And I work for the insurance branch of that group. So it's a branch which has also quite a footprint internationally. So we have 100 million policy holders in 35 countries. And why am I telling you that? It's just so that you realize that my challenge is to orchestrate all those countries to work properly and develop models properly. And also that you realize that I work in a highly regulated industry, so as all financial companies, and I'd like to know in the audience who works for what they think is a highly regulated industry here in the room. Okay, so a quarter of the audience. So my talk will resonate to you, I think. So my first message is that model risk governance, it's not new. Because in such highly regulated industries, we have built organization around model risk to take care of model risk, and it was driven partly because of regulatory and supervisory requirements. So for instance, at BNP Paribas, we have typically the actual affairs, the finance department and risk department who are really risk aware and organized around controlling model risk. But there are those new types of models, so machine learning model, AI-based models that were not traditionally used, and the supervisors and regulators, they pay more and more attention to those models, and for a legitimate reason is that a lot of financial companies, they want to start and become model-driven, and my company wants to become model-driven, and that means that the overall risk profile of the company will change. And when we talk about risk, we talk about potential financial loss, operational risk, litigation, threat to our customers' private life, inappropriate advice, things like that. And so at BNP Paribas Cardif, we've observed two big phenomena. First, our departments that are risk aware, they face some challenges around the number, the type, and complexity of the models that are being used in their departments. And the second phenomenon is that all departments that were not traditionally used to deal with models, they want to embed in their processes models. And all those two phenomena are amplified by the fact that we have those new competencies in the company, so some analytics team, data scientist teams, that are here to develop those models. and also a lot of consultants that help us do that. And we felt there was a need for a new type of model risk governance around machine learning and AI to deal with three new challenges. So the new type of models, the new uses spread all over the company, and the volume of models we have in production. So when we talk about risk governance, people have a lot of preconceptions, and for data science leaders, those preconceptions might lead them to postpone in the roadmap that subject of designing a model risk governance. And I've listed a few preconceptions that people can have. So first, the fact that it's not straightforward to design, and some data science leaders might think, oh, I need to do more projects. I need to gain more experience to have a better vision of what should be embedded in that governance. Second preconception about the time it will take to do such governance, and data science leaders might think we don't have the resources in the short term, and we should prioritize all projects that are more business-oriented. A third preconception is that it's not the funniest part of the job, and that maybe somebody else will take care of designing such governance. So maybe another branch in the group or the risk department of the group will do it for us. Another preconception is about the fact that it's going to be complex to validate and I have all the stakeholders validate the content of such governance. Finally, other preconceptions around the fact that governance can be innovation killers and prevent agility. So once again, my message here is, in spite of all those preconceptions, my feedback is that you shouldn't wait and start working as soon as possible. If you don't have a model risk governance around AI model and machine learning models, start now. And you should take on the challenge yourselves to take the lead on such governance, turn it into an opportunity, and what I'm going to try and show you is that the return on investment is significant. First message, working on such governance will really help you strengthen your transformation strategy. First, you will gain a lot of credibility and visibility towards your executive committee, your IT department, security, risk. You will show that your roadmap is really comprehensive. And if you are in a highly regulated industry, I'm sure you have risk-oriented stakeholders that look at your roadmap, and you will see that suddenly they will see you as a trustable leader and trustable party in the transformation. Second, it will help you step back on your target organization and the recruitment that you still need to do and where you stand on your roadmap. It's really an opportunity for you to shape your vision and convictions about where to go. And it will help you identify also the current weaknesses of your organization. Third, it will help you reinforce the support that you need to have on some strategic projects. Because some projects, they will become even more legitimate in the light of model risk governance. And it may help raise some additional funding for those projects. And here, for instance, I talk about data science platform. So at BNP Paribas Cardif, so we are a customer of Domino. And all the arguments around the fact that such platform would help us implement model risk governance was really strong in having people support us. Second, I think that such governance is really a very useful tool to focus on what's important. First, it will help you focus on the industrialization aspects of your project methodology. If you link your project methodology to what the model governance expects, and if in the other way around you manage to design the governance so that it's project-oriented, it will really help you. Second, it's also a nice tool for you to potentially control all the frenetic launch of unrealistic POCs in the company. I'm sure you have, if you're in a big company, in a lot of departments, teams, they try to launch AI-based projects. And so such a tool will help you filter and select the projects that have a chance to live up until the production stage. And also it will save you precious time and precious resources. And for us, all the time that we saved, it really pays off compared to the time that we had to invest and to design our model risk governance. Third, it will help you to contribute to the acculturation and education and change management work that you have to do towards the rest of the company. Because a model-driven company, it's a company where all employees should understand what is at stake, and also in terms of model risk. And all the events and communication that you will make with that governance, around that governance, it's also nice contact opportunities that you can have with your internal clients. Third, I think, I'm convinced that it will help you accelerate. So if you take the lead and the control on the governance content, then you have the opportunity to design it and ensure that it contains your vision and your expertise of what is analytics and how you want to implement it in the company. And if you manage to design a business-oriented governance, you will manage to keep agility and innovation possible. And also, if you let others work on that governance, and afterwards you realize that what they did not match your vision and it kills innovation and agility, it will cost you, it will be very costly to try and undo what they designed and to change what they designed. Second, with such governance, it will help also to decrease the project's marginal costs and increase the probability of success of your projects because it brings standardization. And the project managers will clearly know what they have to do or what they shouldn't do at project inception. And third, I'm really convinced that such a piece of work is an intellectual property and that it should be considered as a strategic asset along with data, people, and the technologies. Because do you think that if you work in a highly regulated industry, do you think that your competitors can realistically industrialize dozens of AI models without a clear model risk governance? I'm not convinced so. And if you manage, once again, to smartly design it, to make it business-oriented, that's really what makes it intellectual property. Now that I've listed all those benefits, I'm just going to wrap up my presentation by giving some advice on where to start, if you need to start. So first, get inspiration from the existing governances and go and talk to people who work on them. They will give you precious advice on how much effort it meant, how they managed to validate the content, and how they grew the governance in time. Yes. Start by writing macro principles and work on the details later, a bit like people do software development with a test-driven development approach. So when you do test-driven development, you first write the test that try to test what your function does, what its objective, and if it does well, and then you write the code of the function and work on the details. So same here, work on the principles, and for instance, work on the details while you're doing projects and you shape and fine-tune the details. I also advise to iterate with validators frequently. We'll make it more probable to validate the content easily. And of course, onboard your risk and IT department from start. A bit of advice also on the content. So what I think should be pillars of that governance. So a pillar around roles and responsibilities, some pillar around methodology and documentation of the models, some pillars about how the models are scientifically approved and how they are approved business-wise. Also, pillars around the technological setup and how your technological setup help you to implement that governance. A pillar around how IT and data scientists should collaborate, because there's a new split of responsibilities in terms of development. And a pillar, of course, about model lifecycle and all what's around monitoring and retraining and what we do if the model breaks, fallbacks, stuff like that. So I'm done. We have time for some questions. So, yes.
First, excellent framing talk. Very, very well done. Please forgive me for asking an obvious question. You are talking about the best way to do model governance. How does BNP Paribas align model governance, as you espouse, with data governance?
Okay. So it's true that it's two separate governance, but all those governance are linked together by a kind of macro governance around a project. So when we do project, there should be someone who is representative of data and data quality.
So all of this descends down from the bank's project governance.
Yeah.
So model governance and data governance are subsets of project governance.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you described a situation which I think is at least common in my organization around lots of POCs, probably not nearly enough governance, things flying around. But you can also probably foresee a situation where there will be too much governance, right? And I wonder, in your experience, how do you know when enough is enough? Or how can you identify when there's too much governance in a model process like this?
Yeah. So I totally agree, and that's why I advise you to take the lead so that you have a chance to prevent from ending with a governance that it will prevent projects to be done. And so how I would advise to do that is that, as I said, you should work first on the principle, and it's more the details that are dangerous, and the details could actually be really badly designed and be too complex or too demanding and kill projects or prevent projects from being operationalized. So my advice is start with principles and to still keep the hand and the lead on the content while you start working with that with those principles on concrete projects, and work on the details while on the project, and effectively experience that some detailed requirements or how they are asked or the depth can be dangerous and kill innovation. That's how I see it. But yes, practically to give some feedback, we had done some first draft of some detailed content of the governance, and I rapidly realized that it was too much and it prevented projects to land. So we modified that.
So at my bank, one of the things we've seen regulators expect from validators is the ability to explain or at least understand the business underpinnings of whatever model. So for a standard PD, LGD, AD approach, it's straightforward, or even for liquidity models it's possible. But with ML and AI, the black box nature of several of those approaches makes it very difficult for someone to essentially validate whether the approach makes business sense. The intuitiveness is lost. How have you at BNP Paribas, if at all, have been able to address that? What methods have you successfully, or at least are looking at, to throw or shed light at these black boxes?
Okay, So it's true for the really highly regulated activities of the company. So here, if we think about, for instance, pricing of our insurance products or provisioning of mathematical reserves. So our approach was to say, in the first step, we're going to use machine learning and AI just to improve our insights about the data and the correlations and the interactions, and use AI and machine learning to give more insights to input into more traditional models that are fine with the regulators. So that's the first approach that we do. A second approach is that for less regulated activities or part of the activity where we need less interpretability of the models, we try to use smartly the models. So for instance, if we use models to accept automatically claims, so our models, what they do is that they systematically only accept claims, but you never refuse a claim based on the model. And the regulation is really based on making sure that you are not penalizing people with a model, and you should explain why you had a bad impact on your customer with your model. So we try to use them in the processes in a smart way, such as when we use models which lack explainability or transparency, we use it only for the benefit of the customer.
Can you talk a little bit about the model performance monitoring process that you guys have in place?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Can you talk about the model performance monitoring process that you have in place at your company?
So as I said, we use Domino. And so for all of the models that we put into production thanks to Domino, we have the way to nicely consume logs of the APIs that we put in production, and we can build reports around monitoring. And then in the governance, we are really, really clear in terms of roles of who is in charge of the monitoring of the model. So we never go into production without having a clear function or person or team which is in charge. So did I answer your question, or will?
Yes, you did. I'm more wondering about the models that run real time or near real time. You know, how often do you check the performance? And I was curious how that process looks like, and the documentation that needs to be produced for those models as well, for governance purposes. Yeah. It's a pain point for us. Yeah. That's why I asked.
So the documentation, it needs to be really filled in and validated before the model goes into production. And here we try to decrease the charge for our developers by templating things, giving a lot of examples, sharing the documentation of other models so that people don't start from scratch and can easily produce governance for their models. And then about the frequency of how much we refresh the models and how frequently we follow the performance. It depends on the models, but and for what they are used. But for instance, for claim management, we do really almost continuous monitoring. Also because it's quite new and we need to learn, and it would be not really well to not look at them on a daily basis. Or so thank you very much. I hope I convinced you that it was a nice project to start and take the lead on.